Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Place, and I'm the founder of Third Act Quest. The last two nights of Third Act Quest Stories Live have been truly magical. The connections, inspiration, and the engagement between the storytellers and you, the audience, has really been wonderful to see and be a part of. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have also felt the beautiful power of connection with each other. We were just talking, the speakers that will be joining you tonight, where Sally actually was remarking that we've never met each other in person. And she's like, man, wouldn't it be fun if we could meet each other offline? And those are visions I think we all have as we've been meeting so many wonderful people in this last pandemic period on Zoom. I hope, one of my dreams is to have Third Act Quest gatherings in person again, sometime in 2022. So I'm grateful to each of the wonderful people who've gathered to speak over these three special evenings, and especially to the story coaches who've helped our storytellers refine their words. I'd like to thank each of them for sharing their time and their hearts with us. Do you mind actually, Wendy, can you pop up a picture? And also, do you mind spotlighting? I'm hoping, I know Sally's here and Liz is here and Daniel has been here each evening. Do you mind spotlighting them as well, real quickly? Hi. I am hearing music from someplace. I'm not sure where it is. So, okay, there we go. So how about Liz Solar also, Wendy? Is that possible?
If Liz pops her camera on.
Liz, put your camera on. Well, maybe she disappeared, but we'll talk to her later. You met her last night as she told her story. I just wanted to quickly acknowledge and thank you both. Sally's going to be speaking tonight, so you'll hear from her. Daniel is and has been an amazing support to several of the storytellers during this process. And I just wanted to say hi and open up the mic. Let's start with you, Daniel, just quickly to say hello. Daniel Kritzman from New York.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Diana. I'll just say thank you for having me. It's been an amazing opportunity to hear from the speakers, to watch the engagement of the audience, and to help work with a couple of the speakers on really bringing these stories to life. That's my background as an actor, filmmaker, and artist. And the intergenerational component here has been really enlightening for me. I'm very inspired and can't wait to see what happens tonight. So thank you all, and thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Daniel. How about you, Sally? Anything you want to add to about your experience doing the coaching with some of the storytellers you worked with?
Well, you'll hear from me in a moment, but the thing that I wanted to say is hearing somebody's story is like the most precious gift. And it is also the most precious thing to be a story coach, because sometimes I just want to walk around and say, if you could hear who you are, if you could hear the story that is coming through you, you would be so moved the way I'm moved. And sometimes I think we just need each other to be witness to each other's stories so that we can see that beauty in the way that others can when they hear us.
Beautiful. Again, thank you all, and enjoy this evening. We're going to get rolling, and here we go. Okay. So just a few housekeeping notes for those of you that may be here for the first evening. You may have already seen, but you have gotten emails, and you'll get an event wrap-up email from me tomorrow with links to view each of the evening's recordings in case you were unable to make every night. For tonight, I invite you to please open your video if possible. And it's just so much more engaging, especially for the speakers, to actually see the faces of the people that are listening to them. Keep your mics muted just in case, as I mentioned, my dogs aren't here, thank God, but it's common that they bark as soon as I open a Zoom window. So we want to just avoid that if we can. And reminder too, that the speakers are live here tonight, and they will open up at the end of their talks and open up for you guys to ask questions, either in the chat. Feel free to put chat questions or comments all along. And in the reactions button, you can click at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand if you want to actually be spotlit on the camera to speak live. So what you're going to experience tonight is a little bit different than the first two nights. It's going to be just as meaningful, inspiring, but it's going to be different because tonight is all about your life story. And the speakers are going to help guide and have you ponder your life story a bit. All of our life experiences, the highs and the lows and everything in between, play a part in shaping how we see ourselves in the world. And they become the stories we tell ourselves and define who we are and what we believe. So tonight, Sally Fox, Margit Novack, and Jeanne Demers will inspire you to move beyond some of those long-held limiting beliefs and to inspire you to unearth some of those unbelievably passionate dreams you've buried over the years, and help you get the courage to take leaps of faith like the speakers on our first night shared with us. Embrace the opportunity for change and possibility in your years ahead. We're going to close this evening in the last 35, 40 minutes with Jeanne Demers, who's going to take us through a live interactive workshop experience that's going to help us start to craft and reimagine our story. You don't have to do it right now, but we'll give you a pause as she comes on to actually get a piece of paper, blank paper, or a couple pieces of paper and a pen, something to write with, because he'll be doing something live there. So first, Sally Fox. Sally's talk is entitled Express Yourself, Shape a More Creative Story About Aging. Sally's going to talk about how each of us has the power to shape our own stories, including the narratives we tell ourselves about aging. She says, why settle for the old, outdated concepts when you can step into a story that will give more joy and meaning to your life? Sally's a writer. She's actually working on an amazing book that I cannot wait to see published and out in the world soon. She's a writer, a storyteller, and a story coach who helps people one-on-one, but also organizations create the stories they want. She writes for Third Act Magazine in Seattle and is finishing this book I mentioned about finding joy and meaning through creative expression after midlife. She has an amazing blog called on her website called Engaging Presence, and Wendy will put her links in the chat as we go. She is a fascinating human, a lovely human. Her background, her PhD is in leadership development. She's consulted for many years. And now as she emerges in her third act, we're just so excited to have you here with us, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And I have been so enjoying the conference, and it's been exciting for me. And it's also challenging, as Liz said, because my stories don't stay put. And so the story that I created on Sunday night for this conference is not the story that I'm going to tell you today, because having heard the great speakers and having been inspired by the conference, there was a new story that wanted to come forward. And that's the way stories are, because stories are alive. We're not living Hollywood here where everything is kind of set in a box and you have your story. for me, stories have a whole different role. There's something that they're alive, you create them. And then with the really potent stories, they begin to create you back. So I'm going to invite us all to do something that's really for me, because I got kind of excited waiting for this. And I'm going to ask you to take 3 deep breaths. If you want with me, you can put your arms up in the air, because I love to say Om and just stretch my hands out. And then just put your hands on your heart for a second. So let's start with, yeah. Om. Om. And as you put your hand on your heart, ask yourself this question for tonight. And it's very personal. It's, what is the story that's living in me that is dying to come out? What is the story that is waiting to be born? What is the story, even if I don't have words for it, that's going to carry me into the future? As Diana said, I'm a story coach, but for me, stories just live on multiple levels. So there's a level of story that we've been hearing this over the conference. It's the story you tell to the world. Those are great. They're entertaining, they're informing, and it's how we get to know each other. But then there are the stories that we live. And those stories are partly from the past, where we have taken our events and incidents and experiences and harvested them to make meaning that we carry forward into our present life. And with that, we start to reach out and we create stories for the future. So we live within stories. And then, as Diana mentioned, there are the stories that surround us. And when I began my third act quest, one of the most important discoveries I made was that I didn't have a clue what the story of becoming 50, 60, 70, or 80 was, because all of those narratives that I saw about aging didn't fit me. I mean, there was a retirement story, but I work for myself and I'm a creative and I'm a writer. So am I retired? No. Retirement had like no meaning for me. But neither did those stories about the good life. You know, like you two can do splits like that gymnast at 90. And I'd go, you know what? My body's already crapping out a little. And I didn't do splits at 17. I'm not going to do splits at 90. And by the way, I don't like to have the gold standard for my aging be in some able-bodied person out there that I see on the internet. I want the gold standard to be what I find inside of myself. So those stories didn't work. And what I've found is that stories are our gem, because if we can find the story that we want to live, just like I was asking you right at the beginning, we have something that can carry us forward into the future. Having a story isn't like having a mission statement, and it's not even like having a purpose, because we may not understand it. Stories are messy and they're volatile and they change, but they're real. And they come from a deep part in us that knows who we are. And those are the stories that I treasure, the stories that may know more about us than we know about ourselves. And part of my third act quest is about discovering those stories. So I want to tell you a little bit of that story. Now, Diana, you said these speakers aren't going to be telling their stories, but I'm going to disappoint you because I'm going to tell you a story. Yeah, yeah. Because I want to take you back to the
I am so happy you are. Thank you.
Right.
You've got a good one. Good one.
It's super, because when I was turning 50, I was like a lot of us. I had a good life. I had a husband, a job in leadership development I loved, a community, a meditation group, and I even had the horse of my dreams. So I had a great life. So I didn't quite understand why this little voice started surfacing in me, saying, there's more. I want more. And at first I thought, oh, Jesus, are my hormones taking over again? Would you guys quiet down? But once I turned about 51, I realized this wasn't just hormones. This was a really deep longing in myself for something. Oh, I didn't know what. So I was really lucky. I got this major contract to go to Japan, 10 weeks over a 3-year period. And I fell in love with Japan. And I would spend hours just sitting in the grass in the temple gardens, soaking it all in. And I saw greens I had never seen before. I mean, you'd look and you see the bamboo waving in the background, and you'd see the azaleas with little flowers. And what I really loved were those carpets of moss that had all been manicured with little rocks sticking out of them, and the grasses and the flowers and the maple trees. And I would sit in the gardens and soak in beauty. And my heart would be so full that those poor little Japanese guards would have to come up to me and say, "Sumimasen," you know, it's like their equivalent of, "We're closing. Didn't you hear the temple bell? You have to leave now." And what I couldn't say to them is, "But I'm so hungry. I need this." So after all my trips to Japan, I felt so filled up, and I had loved the sights, the sounds, the colors, the foods, all of Japan. And as I got back on flight 982, United from Narita Airport to Seattle, it sank in that I was really going to miss what I found in Japan, because I'd found a side of me that I was missing in a life that had been so focused on productivity, achievement, making a difference, getting ahead. And I looked up, and it was almost like I felt this cloud of depression, was just hovering near the overhead bins. And I pulled my gray, scratchy United Airlines blanket over me, and I started to cry. And I said to myself, "Sally, you have an ultimatum. I give you 11 hours to find out what's going to give you joy in your life back in Seattle, or that cloud of depression is going to come raining down on you when you resume your life." So I sat there. I didn't know what it was going to be, and I thought of different things, but it wasn't a mission. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't a bunch of ideas. It wasn't a reframe of my current life that I wanted. I wanted something for here. And fortunately, 9.5 hours into the flight, I got my answer. It was like all of a sudden I was filled with a sensualness, a sense of beauty, a softness, kind of like velvet on your skin and a fragrance in your nose, and a wash of colors of coral and purple and white. And then I had the vision and one word, and it was peonies. Now, I mentioned this because for some of you, if you're like me, you may not know what your calling is, or you may not know what your direction or your sense of purpose or all that good stuff you're supposed to know. So part of what I'm saying to you is listen to the whispers, listen to the images, listen to your dreams, listen to the way you know information comes to you, because that's the source code. And later on, you can figure out goals and directions and all that, but you want something so real that it can take you over the way peonies did for me. And as I decoded it, what I realized was it was saying to me, "Sally, your soft, feminine, relational, sensual soul is starving. And it's your time to feed that soul. And you better. And it wants sensualness, it wants beauty, and it wants to create. And I knew, it just flashed on me. I saw myself with bunches of colors, and I saw myself with dirty clay, and I saw myself playing on a kid's keyboard, making any kind of song. I just felt so hungry to create. So when I got back to Seattle, not knowing what I was doing, not having any particular goal, and not having any mission statement, I did whatever I could to create. I was a kid in a candy store of my own creation. I did paper wrapping. I took up Ikebana. I did improv, which I really loved because I loved creating scenes and characters. And I even did some things that were total failures. I took a class in clowning. And if ever you want a way to practice vulnerability after listening to Brené Brown, take a class in clowning. Because if you want to feel vulnerable, picture yourself on stage with a red nose, and the instructor is screaming at you to make 35 people laugh, and you can't say a word. I have to admit, I was a total failure as a clown. It taught me to have some humility, and it taught me what real vulnerability was all about. But I continued my quest just creating. So this is sort of the second key that I wanted to give you, which is be in action. When you hear that call of your soul, it doesn't hang around. I knew that if I hadn't done something when I heard peonies, it would have been a nice memory, just like Japan was going to be a nice memory of all those sushi dinners and wonderful smells. But by being in action and doing all these crazy things, each step could lead me. One step could lead me to the next step, could lead me to the next step. And then it started to pick up because I discovered that I love doing what we're doing now. I love telling stories, and I love helping people with their stories. And when I can't do that, I love writing and writing stories or writing whatever I can. And I was discovering all these things about myself, and I became a gardener. And I began to see this may just be what I'm about. You know, sure, I have a PhD and I taught leadership and I love all this stuff, good analytic mind, but I'm a writer and I'm a would-be performer. So I happened to have my second epiphany when I did something really weird for my 60th birthday. And I gave myself a consultation with this woman who does Chinese face readings and Chinese numerology, because I thought she would be able to fix my life for me. She didn't. But when we talked about what I was up to in my life, she said something to me. She said, Sally, what you want to do is perfect. It is you. You have to do this. But then I thought, and her name was Jean Hayner. I said, Jean, I can't do that because I don't have a BFA. I never studied writing in college. I haven't done any acting. I didn't perform in college. I am way too late. If I was going to do this, I should have started at 20, not at 60. And Jean said something to me that would change my life. And I give it to you. She said, Sally, you couldn't have done it 40 years ago. You can only do it now because you are 60. And I was like flabbergasted. I thought nobody ever told me that about being 60. I thought 60 was like the wrap it up time, get ready for retirement. But what Jean said blew that apart, because what she was doing was giving me the card that I'd been looking for, saying, this is your time. You go be who you are. Go be you and continue your creative path. And so that's what I've done. And it's gotten stronger, and I've gotten more committed to what I'm doing, whether it's storytelling or writing or music. But I want to warn you about something, because let me step back for a second, because I'm using this word creative, and that is a word that doesn't ring for everybody. But let me just decode it for you, because when I'm saying creative, I'm not saying talented, I'm not saying artistic, I'm not saying musical, I'm not saying top of the heap. I'm saying that you have something authentic here. And when you come from here and you do something with it, you will be creative. So for my husband, it's fixing cars. For me, it happens to be writing. For somebody, it might be scrapbooking, and another person, it might be civil action. It's whatever it is for you. But when you give yourself with that kind of passion to what you're creating, be careful, because it will give itself back to you and it will start making demands. So like, don't write a book if you don't want to be changed, because I'm writing this book about creativity in the second half of life. And my book is asking me to be more honest. And it's saying, when are you going to go back and talk about some of those traumas that you experienced? When are you going to use your own skills to go back into those places that you don't want to go into? And I discovered that with storytelling and performing and writing, I could go back in and begin to heal some of those traumas and things that I had said about myself for 60 plus years. And it was work. And fortunately, my creative work, like my book, was very demanding. So I want to tell you about one in particular, because I grew up, I was kind of smart in school and I was a good student and all that. And there was one thing I absolutely wasn't, and that was artistic. That question was resolved in third grade. I didn't do very well in art. I knew who the artists were. I knew who the talented ones. I knew who had their pictures on the wall. It was never me. So end of story. No artistic talent, no visual talent, end of story. And yeah, I did flower arranging, and yeah, I did gardening, but I could write that off. That wasn't really artistic. Yeah. But then one day when I was 68, this old woman in town, literally old, she's 80 years old now, she said to me, "Sally, I think you would really enjoy my watercolor class." And I looked at her because she's a lovely person. And I said, "Jerry, I don't do art. I do a lot of other things. I'm really busy. I don't do art." And she looked at me like, "Well, that's the stupidest thing." And she said, "Well, come to my class. You might like it." And I said, "Jerry," and then I heard the voice. I call it the longing, that place inside of me that just knows. And I heard it, and it just said, "That is the lamest excuse I have ever heard." And it said, it was like this muse I don't have time to talk about, but the voice that I heard said, "Sally, think about your dad's art supplies. You've had a box from your dad locked in your closet for 19 years. And when you took that box, you carried a piece of your dad home, and you said, 'Someday I will open this and I'm going to use it.'" So good old Jerry, I say, "Okay, Jerry, I'll come to your senior center class." It's low risk. And the afternoon that I was going to her class, I go in and I open the box, and I find the colors that make my head spin. Yellow gamboge, a burnt sienna, a cobalt blue, an aquamarine, a cadmium red. I mean, I didn't even know these colors. I just loved the sound of them. And I saw Dad's handwriting on all of the boxes. And I knew I was about to open the door back into his life. And I went to the class, and I decided, I don't have talent. I don't care whether I'm an artist or anybody likes my art. I love this, and it is part of me. And even though for 50, 60 years I've said I am not an artist, that story was wrong. I'm an artist. But it's more than that. It's more than opening the door to that creative process. Because when I opened that box and I started painting, I found a piece of my dad that I'd always wanted. My dad was one of those corporate types who always kept his emotion tucked way in, who loved me, but could never say it in the way that I wanted, that always kept his heart that was bruised in World War II, closely contained. But when I used his paints, I felt my dad. Who cares that he'd been dead for 20 years? He was with me again. And that's the magic, because finding a creative path and recreating your story, it's not just about reinventing yourself or finding a new way to have a business after midlife. It's about feeding your soul. It's about finding out who you really are. And it's about honoring that story that lives within you and so badly wants to come out. Thank you.
Sally. Thank you, Sally. The longing, that voice inside. I love just the feeling of thinking about that longing. We've all heard it, or maybe not. Maybe we haven't listened. So you certainly have inspired us tonight. I would love to open up, to the audience to either put in the chat or to raise their hands if there are any. You don't have to be questions, but they can be things you might want to share along with Sally's very beautiful story. Any takers? I see Liz saying you can only do it now. Yes. Allison said she's very moved, and it's all about a relationship with risk for her.
And I'm glad to be practical too, because when I'm writing my book, part of it is the story within me, but there's a lot of practical questions about how do you do this? And how do you do this when you're not endowed? And how do you do this when you don't have time and money and all those great things? So I would be glad to share on any level. Yeah.
Oh, actually, we do have a couple of hands raised. Let's start with you, Diane.
Sweet.
Hello. So happy to see you again tonight, my dear.
Hi, Diane. Are you muted?
She's muted. Yes. There we go.
Okay. Luddite here. First, thank you all. And I apologize, I'm joining a little late. I just kind of keyed into your part with your father, because 13 years after my father's died, I'm still having stuff and reactions and things. And I just keep looking for ease and simplicity, and it doesn't always come. But this exercise, this process that Diana has created and facilitated is not a good word. It's just that, yeah. But you have created and you have hatched this opportunity for all of us. So I realize that you think it's done, you think it's worked out, but it's not.
Yeah.
So just I'm trying to open myself up to, I wake up and it's not done, it's not figured out, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to move forward. So I'm
Can I say something I thank you for sharing that. I so get it. I resonate with that. And one of the myths that I think we live in is the idea of doneness. Because for me, what stories are incredibly messy, and there's the beginning and the golden apple at the end, but most of us are just doing the best we can going through. And we'll get a little light and we'll get a little understanding and we'll resolve a little of the past and we'll heal a little trauma and we'll go on. And that is the story. That is life. And I at least felt like there was some place to get to. And I felt like I needed to be done with things. But I know that's a myth. because the beauty is in the living of it. And you're beautiful. And your story is so beautiful. And it's evolving, you know? So to honor that and to give yourself the grace, because of a lot of my life, I felt like I had to fix myself, and I'm not fixed yet. But the lovely thing about some of these creative arts is they don't ask me to be fixed. You know, when I go and play with my fingers and paints, I have a way of healing that doesn't ask anything mental of me, and it doesn't criticize me. And it's a good counterpoint for doing the hard inner work that I think you're talking about. So thank you for bringing that in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. So we have 3 questions popped up, and I want to ask you all if we can move. Margit is due to start speaking in a few moments, but if you're okay with it, Margit, I'd love to have these folks have the opportunity to ask their questions or make their comments. So Liz Salar, you have.
Yeah, is there one more question? And then I just want to make one comment at the end.
There are a couple more. So if we can, I hate to ask people to be brief because this is all about engaging and enjoying each other, but let's just go and see what happens here. Liz.
I love that you come from this background that is so left brain and kind of migrate over to the right brain. And I keep thinking, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was a writer who said, you know, my entire life is an act of revision. And it feels like all your effort is into the revision of it. And there doesn't need to be any reason except for the wanting to be involved in beauty, just to want beauty to exist in your world. I was deeply moved by what you had to say and the piece about your dad. And we carry these things through our entire lives. And the art is a way of making sense of all of these feelings. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Now, Laurelyn.
Hi. Let's see, put me on the screen. There we go. Hello, Sally.
Hi, darling.
I have
Hello,
had
darling.
the honor of knowing Sally for much of her journey to integrate the left and the right brain. We were together in an MBA program at Yale more than 30 years ago. And so
40.
Okay, I'm always doing that. Add a decade or so. And I guess I just want to quickly say that this whole notion of honoring I'm also reclaiming my artist identity. And it's not just about feeding your soul, but allowing your soul to feed you. That it's this sense of art being an expression of your soul. And to me, that's one of the things that keeps me writing and keeps me painting, because it allows parts of me to express in ways that it can't otherwise in the world. And there's so many ways to be creative, as Sally pointed out. And I thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Now, Rebecca,
Can I just add one last?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to say, I want to give everybody a really, really big tip, because this is not, if you're choosing a story path, and there was one question about how to get the story out, you want a story buddy. It doesn't have to be a formal coach, but you need a buddy on the trail with you. Hiking is so much more fun. And I just want to deeply thank Lori, because she has been with me for some years now, and we know how to pull each other out of potholes, and we know how to cheer each other on. And so that is part of what I wish for everybody, is to have at least one friend, lots more, but at least one friend who knows what you're up to and can cheer you on.
Oh, Kathy. Kathy just mentioned, this is Kathy from last night. She absolutely loved and said it was so moving. And we all feel that way. Thank you, Sally. Really, from all of us, thank you so much. So we'll move on to our next engaging speaker. Thank you. Margit Novack The title of her presentation tonight is called The Story of Your Stuff, Redefining What's Important. So, as she shared with me, many of us feel really burdened by stuff, both inherited and acquired. Margit shares in her talk tonight how it's not decluttering tips we need, but a change in mindset. It's how we deal with things rather than who gets them that creates our legacy. And as an entrepreneur and a thought leader and an industry founder in senior move management, after decades in the field of aging, she moved away from her life of work entitled to another role as author, speaker, and champion of a revisioned picture of aging. Now, I will lift up her beautiful book. It's called Squint, Revisioning the Second Half of Life. I highly recommend it, and we will put a link to it in the side notes. But welcome, Margit. Thanks for being here tonight.
Over the years, I helped thousands of people downsize their belongings. And what I learned as they struggled about parting with certain things is that they were focusing on the wrong thing. They wanted to keep and pass on their belongings, and what they needed to pass on are their stories. When I was 26, my mom passed away, and I got a lot of her things. And one of my favorite things was a glass cake plate. It looked a lot like this cake plate, not etched glass, not cut glass, not something special, but we had baked a lot, and she used to use this cake plate. So after she died, it became my go-to cake plate. One day I was invited to a party and made a cake, and I put things on the cake on the cake plate. But there was a lot of cake left over when it was time to leave. So I said to the hostess, "Don't worry, I'll get the cake plate later." Well, the next day I get a phone call. "Hi, Margit. Please tell me this cake plate wasn't a family heirloom." And I said, "Well, it belonged to my mother, and it was one of my favorite things." Dead silence on the phone. And then I said, "But my mom is in my heart and my mind, not in a cake plate." First of all, what was I going to say? It was pretty clear the cake plate was kaput. But as soon as I said it, I knew it was true. My children never met my mother. That cake plate would not mean to them what it meant to me, but I realized something much more important. My mother came to this country from Hungary when she was 12 years old. They put her back a year in school because she didn't know English. And when she was 16, she got tuberculosis and spent a year in a sanitarium. When she came out of the sanitarium, she was 2 years behind, and she never finished high school. I grew up knowing that I was going to go to college, but also knowing how much it bothered my mother that she didn't have an education. Sometimes she would say, "Well, I know I didn't go to college, but I think I'm just as smart as Susie's parents or Barbara's parents." And of course she was. She was so smart. We loved talking about literature together. So when I read How Green Was My Valley, I got a copy for her and she read it. When I read Le Petit Prince in French, we had a copy that she could read in English. And we loved talking about literature together. And I realized if I want my children to know their grandmother that they never met, they're not going to meet her by having a cake plate. They're going to get to know her because if I share the stories of who she was and about our relationship. Now, I know that things we've inherited from family members are often a big problem for us emotionally. I think we're safeguarding and passing on the wrong thing. I honor my mom not by passing on her cake plate. I honor her by passing on her story. Some things we inherit from family members, but some things are like the Velveteen Rabbit. They don't have any special value when we get them, but they acquire value over time. For me, an ordinary mug was like that. When I was in my early 30s and single, I took a trip with a girlfriend to a Caribbean island. And at the gift shop there, I purchased a mug. It was pretty ordinary, a lot like this mug. When I got back, I put pencils in it and kept it on my desk and never thought of it. But a few years later, the girlfriend I had traveled with at age 37 got breast cancer. And by the time she was 39, she passed away before she was 39. When I was 39, I got breast cancer. But I'm alive and well. All these decades later, I've had a life and a career and a family. And for decades, I have looked at that mug and it said to me, life is so serendipitous. Why was I so lucky and Karen so unlucky? That mug has helped me be mindful and grateful for what I have, because life changes in an instant and nothing is guaranteed. And yet, when I moved recently, I didn't take that mug because I didn't need it anymore. It had given me the lesson that it was meant to teach, and that's inside me. Sometimes things become an anchor for a story that becomes part of our personal narrative. One of my favorite stories was from a client, and she said that her mother had a prized possession in a brass bowl. And her mother would clean the brass bowl, and it was always kept perfectly and in a place of honor on the sideboard in her dining room. So one day, this woman brings home her then boyfriend, who later became her husband. And her mother, for this initial meeting, is making calf's liver, which may not be very popular now, but it was then. And the woman said she doesn't know why he was so nervous. It could have been about meeting her parents. It could have been the calf's liver. But during the meal, he gets more and more green. And when it becomes clear that he is about to throw up in a second, she reaches and grabs the first thing she can find, which is the brass bowl. And he throws up in the brass bowl. And that's how he met his future in-laws. So decades go by, and this woman's mother passes away. And she and her sister are looking through her mother's apartment, and she says, "Where is the brass bowl?" And the sister says, "Well, Mom gave it to me. She thought you might be embarrassed by the story." And the woman says, "Are you kidding? That story has been part of our family narrative for decades. We have told it over and over again, and we laugh every single time." All these decades, when they told that story and enjoyed that story, she never owned the bowl. And she realized she didn't need the brass bowl in order to continue to enjoy that wonderful story. But my favorite story is about two sisters who are friends. When their parents passed away, they divvied up the belongings and had no trouble with any of the decisions, except for two items. There was a beautiful ring that their mother had bought at a jewelry store. And there was a silver vase she had gotten at an auction. And both sisters wanted both items. So they solved it by each taking one item. And every year on January 1st, they meet and exchange. And the woman with the vase brings it with a dozen white roses, which were their mother's favorite flower. And what I love about this story is that the sisters made relationship more important than ownership. And what I love even more is that is the legacy they have given to their 5 children between them. They have shown, they have led by example and shown their children that belongings are not what's important, that family is important and relationships are important. And that is a wonderful thing to pass on to your children. So much more important than a ring or a silver vase. So I've shared 4 stories tonight, all about belongings, all about things, but really that the things are not what's important. It's the story that's important. If you like these stories, you will probably enjoy my book, which is full of all kinds of stories about all different topics. But I wanted to share the importance of changing our mindset as we look at belongings, because so often part of our 3rd act does include downsizing or reevaluating all of our accumulations and deciding how we want to move forward. And I am suggesting that the way we upsize our lives may be downsizing our possessions, but we upsize our lives by keeping the stories and passing them on. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. And I don't know if there are any comments, but I would love to talk to people if they're interested.
Yeah, I'd love to hear people's thoughts. I will just start out by saying that when my grandmother passed, she was very dear to me. And we as a family put little stickers on everything that we wanted. And I chose the things, like you said, that could trigger to me these stories for her. But I still am, and hearing your talk tonight has compelled me to take action, because I still hold a box in my garage of things that no one else wanted, that I couldn't bear because she had touched them, she had collected them, the broken antiques that she would buy because she couldn't afford the intact ones. It's moved me to know that that's the story of her, that I don't need them, but that box is big and full in my garage. So I really appreciate these 4 stories you've shared tonight. It's really meant a lot to me to know that I can hold on to those stories and not all those things. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We have Sarah Hart with a question. Your hand is raised. Wonderful.
Thank you, Diana. Oh, thank you, Margaret. That is a wonderful presentation you gave us. Thank you. What a gift. I just wanted to say that when my mother died, my sister and I both wanted the same 2 things. A chest that my mother had, my sister and I grew up with, but my mother had spent hours refinishing and was gorgeous. Since my sister was older than I am, I said she should have the chest. And thank goodness I did, because not too long after that, I went through a major downsizing of my own and moved into a very small apartment and would not have been able to keep the chest. So that was absolutely the right thing to do. And the second thing we both wanted, we had also grown up with 2 very heavy rabbits that were bookends. And we both wanted those rabbits. And these were the only 2 things we wanted, the chest and the 2 rabbits. And so she took 1 rabbit and I took the other rabbit. And so each of us have a rabbit, and you can't put books between them, but you can put books up against them, against the bookshelf, and it works just fine.
One of the things that about getting older and changing and evolving is that what we prioritize evolves. In my corporate days, I bought every year, I gave myself the gift of some fancy jewelry. But 20 and 30 years later, I probably spend on Pilates or personal training what I once spent on jewelry. Last week, I asked my 14-year-old granddaughter what kind of earrings she liked so I could get some for Hanukkah. And she said, well, I like my diamond studs. I wasn't really looking for that answer. But I thought, I have diamond earrings. I don't envision wearing them or wanting to wear that. It was important to me at a time. So now I'll spend money on having someone put down my mulch, which I never did when I was younger. I'll spend money on experiences, on doing things, not money on things. And that's part of our own evolving. I think we're changing how we look at what we want to spend money on. So when we say we know who we are, we know who we were, but I think how we look at belongings in our life changes. And I think they're far less important than they used to be.
Well, it became really clear to me, just as you said, that when my sister and I were going through this, that the relationship with my sister was so much more important than those two things ever could be.
I think that's a mantra we should all keep. Relationship is more important than ownership.
Yeah, thank you.
And there are really creative and interesting ways of doing this. That's the point. That's the beauty of the two sisters and the way they handled it. They created a lesson for their children.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you sharing your story about your own sister. Kathy Simmons has a comment or question. You are on mute. There you go.
Always doing that. I did it last night before I talked.
I think we all do.
I just wanted to share two stories that this reminded me of really briefly. One was the way my mother handled it on jewelry, which was she knew she was dying, and she had my sister and I sit down with her and go through, and she actually had a tape recorder, and she went through all of her jewelry and had us say which one of us wanted it, so that and it became, I think it was the fact that it was going on at a time when her life to us was so much more important than who got the coral necklace versus the jade necklace versus the whatever. But so it was a really wonderful, and she told us stories about getting them. So that was a wonderful experience, kind of like that, and it made it even more meaningful for us. But what my mother used to say, which I think is a wonderful way of looking at this, was she used to say that, you spend the first half of your life acquiring things and the second half of your life divesting of things in terms of what you own. And she had this story. She said, what I want to do is keep giving things away so that when I die, all that's left is a little tiny suitcase that somebody can pack up and take away. And that was her view of what life should be about. And I think, I wish I could do that. I'm not quite there yet in terms of getting to that, but it was such a wonderful way of looking at possessions versus things that have real meaning for us. So, but thank you. Your story's wonderful, and your ideas are so helpful as I go through trying to think who in my family I'm going to give everything to and all of that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to ask a question, Margit, and because you've dealt with, and thank you, Kathy. I didn't mean to jump right on top of you there, but I want to ask you a question because you've worked over the years in your business that you ran with people who were downsizing or someone who passed and their possessions had to be divested or moved, right? Moving was probably a lot of it. So that was a lot of downsizing and making decisions. We all know Marie Kondo says, how to make these emotional decisions if something, has meaning for you. So What are some of the ways you can assist people? Because to me, that release of, understanding why something means something so much to you in sort of recalling the story. So how can people detach from something that is more of an, I don't want to use the word emblem or reminder or trigger of the memory? How do you help people detach from the physical possessions when they have too many things to fit into the box that needs to go with
Well,
them?
I'm actually going to answer this in a very pragmatic way because I was a senior move manager. People always obsess over the things they can't part with. But the fact of the matter is that for most of us, our belongings are like a pyramid. And the very top of the pyramid are the most emotional things from family members.
Yeah.
The second tier, very close to the top, are important pieces, our photo albums, things that kids made in school.
Yeah.
But 80%, it's sort of like an iceberg. 80% is below water. 80% of that pyramid is just stuff. It's the stuff in our basements and the stuff in our attics. And people spend a lot of energy asking the question that you're asking of how do we deal with those emotional. And I would say for most of us, the bulk of what you will discard is not emotional. The bulk of what you don't need in your life are the things that are in your basement and your attic and spare bedrooms and not part of your life.
Yeah.
When I was moving, my husband said, let's start with our photo albums. We had 4 boxes. And I said, no, I'm not going to do them. He said, why not? I know we could reduce that 4 to 2 boxes. I said, you're right. We could go from 4 boxes to 2 boxes. But I have 60 other cartons worth of stuff in the basement that I have to go through. And in the same time, I can decrease the photo albums by 2 boxes. I can get rid of 60 boxes.
Yeah.
So what I urge people is, and there are terrific books and specialists on dealing with those emotional things. But in terms of the pragmatism of how to get ready for a move, the place to start is the low-hanging fruit, because most of what we have is low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. Brilliant.
Yes, that's
Thank
right.
you.
The high fruit is not going to be the big obstacle to your move.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Sally has popped in with a question or a comment.
Well, it is a comment. I love your talk, Margaret. Thank you so much. In my book, I talk about the 3 portals of aging that we have to deal with. One is aging, one is letting go, and the other is dealing with death. It's kind of like we're all going to be up against it. And I was laughing at myself with my inability to let go of certain things, like the used camping equipment. But I realized it's not the equipment. It's so hard to realize that I have to let go of a piece of me to be able to say, I am not going to go hiking anymore. And so I waffle for a while, but I wonder if that isn't a piece of the puzzle for some of us, just to be able to say, I'm still here, I'm good, I have this, but I can't do this, I'm moving on, and actually let go of a piece of us.
You know, I was a French major in college. I had shelves of French novels. I got rid of them, but I was still a French major in college. I didn't lose that part of me or my investment in literature, which has never been a part of my life since college. But the things don't make us, the things in our home don't make us who we are.
Yeah. I had one experience that it was a little different. During the pandemic, I had time to clean, like a lot of us. And I started going through my files, and I started pulling out about 15, 20 years of consulting. And I realized one thing, which was, as a consultant or working for yourself, nobody gives you a retirement party. Nobody actually celebrates the end of the run for you. And I wonder if for some of us, we need that. We need to be able to say, the run is over. It was a good run. Now, how about round of applause so I can actually declare it over and complete, as opposed to some kind of slinking off and working through your own file drawer and never having real closure.
I think we have to, I I had an abrupt departure because of COVID from a lifetime of a career that I loved. And I think we have to find ways to get our own closure. It doesn't happen fast.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh my
I
goodness.
wanted to go right to something new, but that's not the way it happened. I'm navigating my journey like a lot of other people.
Thank you. Thank you, Margit. This has been an inspirational and very touching talk, and something very relevant, whether in all of our lives as we empty nest, as we downsize, as we potentially with our parents have moved them. It's just really important. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. So you will see links to Margit's website and her book to the right in the chat. Okay, so next, Jeanne Demers is going to take us through an interactive workshop. So we all can get a little, you can stand up actually and move around a little bit, but in that moment, if you don't already have in front of you a piece of paper and a pen, I would ask you as we get rolling here, I'll give you a couple of minutes or a minute, let's say, as I'm blabbing on a bit, to grab a few sheets of paper and a pen or a pencil. And Jeanne will take us through that later, so you don't have to worry about what to do with it yet. So the workshop she's going to take us through is titled Enhance Your Third Act by Rewriting Your First Acts. You know, rewriting old past hurts into something good can be the key to making your third act everything you want it to be. What happened in your past is over and you can't do anything about it, but you can do something about how you carry it, because all of us know that we carry the beliefs that limit us, the memories that haunt us, in us are very hard to get rid of, these pains and these painful memories. So Jeanne's going to take us through an exciting process of working with the malleability of memories. She is, as we talked and you heard her tell her story on a past evening, she began as an actress and writer and then channeled her love of the arts into the formation of a not-for-profit and worked with young people, mentoring and championing their power of their voice into the world. She, as I mentioned before, I'll say it again though, is a beautiful book she wrote called, or co-authored, called Flawed: How to Stop Hating on Yourself. So Jeanne's going to share a little bit about the work she does now, which involves what she will explain to us is EFT tapping. Now, all of us most likely have read about neural linguistic programming and how we can, by things that we do, there are a number of modalities that can actually shift the way we believe and the way we feel. So tonight, I'm just honored to have you here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So thank you very much, Jeanne.
Thank you, Diana. And I also want to say thank you, Sally and Margit, for the incredible inspiration and stories that you shared. I think that they weave beautifully into what it is that I'm going to do next, because there's stories, and some of our stories need to be let go of or transformed in some way. So yeah, it's just perfect how I'm following the two of you with what it is that I have to share. So to say, if I am proposing that we rewrite old past hurts into something good, because that is the key in my mind to making your third act everything that you want it to be, what do I mean exactly by rewriting them? And what I mean is taking a painful memory and releasing the emotional intensity from it, and then letting the subconscious turn it into something more positive, or guiding the subconscious to turn it into something more positive, something that you actually want more of. So clearly, we are not going to be changing what actually happened in the past. We can't do that because it is in the past, it's over. But as Diana said in the introduction, what we can do is we can change what it is that we carry around with us. And by changing that, we change what it is that we get in life. Because the unconscious, the smartest part of us, is a recycling machine. It finds, notices, attracts to us more of what's already in here. So with that, how to choose what it is that you are going to rewrite today. And I would say that because we have a limited amount of time when it comes to what to choose to rewrite from your past, choose something smallish to work with. Even if you think it's not big enough, it's probably going to be just perfect. And my intention is really that you're going to learn something really valuable that you can then do on your own with bigger things that you want to rewrite. So once you have in mind what it is that you're going to rewrite, the way that we're going to work with it is the modality EFT, emotional freedom techniques, also known as tapping. And I know from having talked about it on Tuesday night that many of you already know it, but there are those who do not, or those who do know of it, but are like Diana was at the outset and skeptical of it. So I just want to acknowledge right up front that it does seem woo-woo. You tap on points on your body and what? Things change. And the pioneers and early adopters of this modality knew, because it is so kind of funny looking, that it was going to be a hard sell. And they were like, this is not going to fly with the general public and be applied as it might be unless we prove its efficacy scientifically. And so they did. They took the years that it took to get the hard data. And now we can actually say that EFT tapping is grounded in science. It is evidence-based. It has got over 100 studies that demonstrate its efficacy. And in one study, because this is like good to know, this like really gives you confidence in it, it appeared in the oldest peer-reviewed psychology journal in the United States, and tapping was found to lower cortisol, that's the stress hormone, 10% more than the other interventions that were being tested at the same time, which scientists consider statistically significant. One clinical psychologist said, it is unusually precise, rapid, and direct for shifting the neurological underpinnings of a range of psychological problems. So I hope that that excites you the way that it excites me. But ultimately, what's really exciting is having an experience with it. So if you have doubts, I'm going to invite you to lay them aside for the next 30 minutes and have an experience. And then you can decide for yourself. All right, so a little demo. I'm going to show you how it is that we are going to tap this evening. And it is the faster EFT style of tapping, which incorporates into it, as Diana said, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So there are more tapping points than the ones that I'm going to share with you, but what we're going to be tapping on is the point on the inside of the eyebrow here, outside of the eye here, and we're like on the rim of the eye socket, under the eye, and then the collarbone point. And when I say collarbone, it's like your collarbone's up here, feel the bone up here, but then you come down a little ways to where it's like a little tender, so it's a little softer, like a little indentation. That's where. And then we grab our wrist, because this is a shortcut. When you grab your wrist, this covers a lot. So if you want to give it a try, it is here, 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 here. Got it? Simple. And why these points is because they're meridian endpoints that correspond to the organs that produce, secrete the chemicals that create the physical feelings that we call emotions, like the butterflies in my stomach, or the weight in my chest, the shortness of breath, the racing heart, the head is spinning. And what the tapping does, tapping on these points, disrupts the signal between the brain and the major organs of the body that trigger the fight or flight response. So we've got bladder, gallbladder, stomach, kidney, and then here you've got small and large intestines, heart, circulatory system. And when we grab the wrist, we're using it, this is the NLP, we're using it as a peace anchor. And we do this by, and please give this a try, squeeze your wrist, take a deep breath in, blow it out, and say peace. Okay? And then after we've done that, gone through the points and the squeezing of the wrist, we let go of the wrist and we go back to the problem that we're going to be working on, the memory or whatever it is that you choose, the thing that bothers you. We go back to it to check on it. And we check on it by noticing, just noticing. Noticing what's there, noticing what's changed. Okay, that's the tapping protocol. And I will ask if there are any questions. I'm gonna switch over to gallery view.
Here's one actually. Does it matter if you tap with 2 or 3 fingers?
So good, thank you. So it doesn't matter, you can tap with both hands, you can tap with 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers. You can do the points in any order, doesn't matter. It's very forgiving, very allowing of it's really basically get the points, just hit the points. And intentionality is important too, but I'll get to that.
Another question from Rebecca is, how hard do you tap, or how soft do you have to tap?
Another good one. I tend to go too hard. It's like I get like really going, tapping on stuff that's up for me, but it does not have to be that way. It can just be tap, 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 tap. It can even be a little press of the points. You can even just do it that gently. In fact, you can do, this is good to know, covert tapping, where you just go like, nobody knows that you're doing it, but you just sort of get the points, just touch them. You can do mental tapping. Just imagine the sensation of your fingertips touching the points. And that's great to do when you're in a situation and you don't want to let your husband know that he's got you tapping.
Can I throw something in very quickly, just because a hint you gave me early in getting to know you was when something was particularly stressful, either you learn something that's upsetting you, or you're witnessing, or you're in it. It doesn't have to be this long drawn, like, as you say, go to a room and do this whole tapping protocol, but just what you taught me is to say is let it go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let it go.
That's it.
Peace.
That's it.
And it is remarkable. Just the two together are powerful. Anyway, I just want to throw that little hint in.
Yes, 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 yes. And that's where we're going. Thank you, Diana.
Anybody else have any questions
Any
before
other questions?
we go next? I also love that you included a lot about the science. because, one of the things that when we talked about this is, people are always skeptical of things that they haven't heard of before, or that they haven't tried before. So that really helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And to answer
A
your
certain order. I'm sorry. A certain order, Rebecca asked also.
Yep, it does not matter. If you like go, I even like messed it up, like purposely get them out of order because it's a pattern interrupter for like that's actually what we're going to be doing is interrupting something. So no, order is not important.
One final question too is the application we're going to be doing tonight, as you mentioned, is something very simple, like we're going to work on reframing a simple, painful memory. But this modality is used a lot, for a lot of different issues, like young children who suffer from anxiety and things like that. Is that correct as well?
Oh yeah, it's like it really anything, weight loss. The VA uses it for PTSD with vets. It's got a lot of applications.
Wonderful. Okay, well then I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay, so back to it. So what we're going to tap on. So it is choosing something from your past. It doesn't have to be the distant past. It can be the recent past. But it's going to be something that upsets you, something that bothered you, something that didn't sit well with you. Not too big, not like a trauma level type of a thing, but more like a, like if I were to pick something to tap on tonight, it would be titled Messing Up While Sharing. And if I were to measure it, because we do that, we measure 0 to 10. 0 is it doesn't bother me at all. 10 is it really, really bothers me. I would give mine a 7 for how much it bothered me and still bothers me. And that's what makes it a problem, is that it still bothers me. And I'm going to demonstrate how we're going to get specific about what we're tapping on, because specificity is really the key here. By taking Diana and then Liz through the series of questions that I'll be taking you through. And as you follow along, you'll likely come up with the perfect memory that bothers you. So Wendy, can you share the slide that shows how I set myself up to do an intake with a client? There it is. Okay, so this is how I organize a piece of paper to gather information about what we're addressing in a session. So what we're addressing this evening for yourself. And you can draw these lines on a piece of paper badly and label the boxes just like this, so that when it's time, you have it in front of you. Okay, Diana, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so now you understand that we're working with the unconscious mind. Therefore, the answers to the questions that I ask you should be that first answer, that first thought that comes to you. That is your unconscious mind speaking to you, and that is what we want. So first thought, best thought, okay?
Got it.
Okay. So what's the problem that you want to work with? Something that you want to change today or work through today?
So this is this, because we did talk about this ahead of time. So is this the problem that I encountered this week that I wanted to use as our example? Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys will appreciate this. In putting together this workshop, I spent about 4 or 5 hours one day, super loading all this different, promotion and email, social media, reaching out one-on-one to people. I put a whole bunch of energy out in the world saying, hey, come to this workshop or come to this event. And all of a sudden I started getting texts and emails from people going, all the links you have are dead. They're not going anywhere. So I basically, as you can imagine, freaked out. So that was my thing.
That's the problem. Good. Okay, so first thing we do is we give the problem a title, or the bothersome memory a title.
And mine was, are you kidding me?
And so that goes in problem title area. And then when you think about, are you kidding me? Do you see it, hear it, or feel it?
I felt it big time.
Okay, okay. And what is it that you felt?
Well, I felt I had an overwhelmed brain at this point. I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. I got angry a bit, got panicked, and I had fear.
Okay. And how else did it come to you? Like you actually felt things, but they were in the form of, you were hearing stuff in your head as well.
The memory kind of things that you asked me to do.
No, like what came to you while you were.
I was basically saying to myself, why on earth did I overload my plate again? I used to have a team. What was I thinking to try to pull this off?
Right. So that's like you heard that in your head. So those things go in the memory space. So lower right-hand corner there, memory.
Wendy has the slides so you can see it. Okay, good. Got it.
Yeah. So I used to have a team. Why did I load up my plate again? You were hearing that overwhelmed brain. And when you hear that in your head, how does it make you feel? What do you notice about it?
Yeah, like I said, overwhelmed. I got this feeling in my gut, this sort of heart race, anger, and what the heck went wrong? I got panicked, and then I felt fear of like, oh my God, all this wasted time and energy, and all these people are going to be coming and trying to sign up for the event, and you can't. So all of that happened in like 3 seconds.
And as you were feeling that, what did you believe about yourself or the world or about other people?
Well, it was mainly about myself. It was like I always take on too much. And when you do that, mistakes happen, snafus happen.
Right. Okay. So that was what you believed about yourself. I always take on too much. These snafus always seem to happen. So that gets written in the beliefs section.
Mm-hmm.
And how strong is it? If you step back into it.
That was a 6.
A 6. Good job. And how do you want to feel instead?
Like I demonstrated before, I want to just let it go. I really want to just be zen in that moment. Instead.
And that's what gets written in the what I want instead section.
Mm-hmm.
And now a good happy memory for you. What's a good memory for you to go to?
This one's easy. Driving in the car with my daughter, Emma.
Great. So that's driving with Emma. And what's the best part about driving with Emma?
I just feel really lots of love. I'm just grateful for every precious moment, and I feel really connected in those moments.
Great. So that also goes in the happy memory section. Great. So now what I want you to do, Diana, is I want you to grab hold of your wrist, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, breathe out, and say peace.
Peace.
And go to the happy memory. That's what you do when you're in your peace anchor. Beautiful. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
All right. And now Liz. So Liz, what about you? What is the problem? What is it that you want to work through today?
I would like to work through my piles, which used to be physical piles, and now it's a combination of physical and digital because I don't have as many actual papers, but I still got a few papers.
Okay, and give that problem a title.
The pile.
The pile, beautiful. Now close your eyes, and do you see it, hear it, or feel it?
Kind of all three, but I really feel it.
You really feel it. Okay. And when you feel it, what do you feel?
Panic, overwhelm. I feel ridiculous. I'm ticked off at myself.
Okay, so this is all stuff that's going to go in. We memory and feelings together. And I recall there were things that you were saying to yourself about it. So
That I just can't get it together. You know, it makes me feel really inept. I really feel like I'm throwing obstacles in my own way. You know, I just feel ridiculous. I feel stupid.
right. And when you feel that, when you feel ticked off at yourself, what do you believe about yourself or the situation or the world?
Well, I think I feel kind of out of control for one. You know, I think that there's this overwhelm that and there's also this like blame that I just can't put things together. That I cause myself a lot of heartache over something that is easily fixable.
Right. So you believe about yourself that I'm
unorganized.
Okay. Okay. And how strong is it, 0 to 10?
Oh, it's an 11 when it happens.
11.
Then it's gone really good. Yeah.
Okay. And at that moment, how do you want to feel instead?
I want to feel confident. I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel like I've got it under control. Like I'm doing this.
Great, great, great. And so are we seeing how the form fills in? We've got memory, feelings, beliefs, what I want instead, how strong it is. And now a happy memory. What's a happy memory for you?
It's always the ocean.
Okay, and what's the best part about it? What does that allow you to feel?
It's peaceful, it's sunny, it's bright, it's my church.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so now I want you to grab hold of your wrist, Liz. Close your eyes, go to the happy memory, take a deep breath in, breathe out, and say peace.
Peace.
That's your peace anchor. And now it's everyone's turn. So we'll go through this with a problem from your life. So asking yourself, what's the problem that or the challenging memory that I want to work with, something that I want to change today. And it's first thought, best thought, give it a title and put it in the problem title space.
Okay, so I just want to interrupt and make sure people, Wendy, if we can go back to, I don't know how to see the gallery. I just want to make sure everybody feels like they're ready. You have your grid drawn.
Yeah, is everybody ready to?
Yeah. There's the template there. I just want to make sure everybody's ready so you don't feel rushed. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jeanne. I just want to make sure everybody's.
No, great. Thank you for doing that.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
So why don't we start over then to prompt them, since I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. So something that you want to change, a memory that's a challenging memory or a problem that you want to work with today. And you're going to give it a title. You're going to write down what that problem title is in that space. And then you close your eyes and you think about it and you notice, do you see it? Do you hear it? Or do you feel it? Or a combination thereof? How do you represent this problem inside? And if you see it, what do you see? If you hear it, what do you hear? If you feel it, what do you feel? And what you come up with there goes in the memory space, just a few key words, because you know. And interestingly, neither Liz nor Diana saw it, but I see them, my problems. And what's good to notice is that if you do see it, is it through your eyes back then in the memory, or are you seeing it like a movie? and you see yourself in it. And so it's good to jot down that if you see it through your eyes, jot down a 1 because that's in the first person. And if you're seeing it like it's a movie, jot down a 3 because that's third person. And as you are there in the memory of it, how does it make you feel as you revisit the memory? What do you notice about that? I feel, and put that in the feelings space. It may be an emotion name like shame or embarrassment, but it also may be what you feel in your body and where you feel it. That's another way. That's the same thing. Feelings, sensations, emotions, they're all the same thing. And do you have any beliefs about this? It may be a belief about yourself, about other people, about the world. And again, first thought, best thought, write what you hear down in the belief space. And imagine you're there. Imagine if it's happening, that it's happening now, and get a sense of how strong is it? 0 to 10. 0 is you can't feel it. 10 is you're really feeling it. How strong is it? And you're going to write down that number in the number column. Good job. Now, what do you want to feel instead? It might be the opposite of what you feel when you're in this problem. And put that in words. That goes in the what I want instead box. And what's a good, happy memory for you? One that springs to mind. You don't have to search for it. Maybe it's being with somebody, a pet or a child, being in nature, the happiest day of your life kind of a memory. And you're going to give that a title in the happy memory space. And then ask yourself, what's the best part about this happy memory? And write that under your happy memory title. What it allows you to feel. Great. All right. I'll give you a moment to get that. But I'm going to assume that we've all got a happy memory that we're going to work with. And I'm going to have you do something a little bit different than what I did with Diana and Liz. And I'm going to have you hold on to your wrist, close your eyes, think about your happy memory experience, whatever it is for you. And if it had a color, what color would it be? First thought. And if it doesn't have a color, that's okay. But just notice what's going on in your happy memory and give it a color. And I want you to think about that color. Think about all those good feelings. And I want you to imagine that that color is a point of light in the center of your chest. Can you place that color there? And imagine that it's filling you up, filling up your heart, your chest with all of those good feelings. Let it fill you up, whatever those feelings are. You're going to go from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, and then give your wrist a little squeeze. Inhale, exhale, peace. And this is our reset point. We're going to go back to this each time after a round of tapping. Great. Now, letting go of your wrist and popping back over to the problem memory. And I want you to step into it, imagine it, really notice it, maybe even amp it up a notch if you can. Let it really bother you. Are you ready to let this go? Are you ready to let this change? And if you're not, just notice that part of you that's not ready to let it go yet. It's okay. It's just a part. because there is a part of you that also wants this to change. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come up with it. So just notice that part. If there's a part that's scared or not ready, because what we're going to do next is we're going to tap on this. But wait a minute, while we're tapping, it's important to shift your focus away from the problem to the feeling of your fingertips tapping. You're going to be repeating after me, but your attention goes to your fingertips in a very focused way. So it's a little bit like rubbing your belly and patting your head at the same time. You're saying words, but your focus is as fully as possible on your fingertips. Okay? Oh, wait, one moment. One more thing. If we were to walk into a pitch black room and I turned on the lights, what naturally happens to the darkness? It goes away. Tapping and repeating after me with your focus on the fingertips while repeating after me. We are eliminating all sadnesses, fears, emotional traumas, judgments, abandonments, betrayals, angers, resentments, guilts, helplessness and hopelessness, rejection, feelings of no control, and everything else that's right, let it all go. Grab your wrist, take a deep breath in, blow it all away, and say peace. Now go to your happy memory. Notice how good that feels. Notice what it feels like. Notice where and how you know. Notice the color. See it, feel it, hear it. Make it stronger. Good job. Take a deep breath, say peace. Now let go of the wrist, go back to the problem, back to the memory of what bothered you. Notice how strong it is. Notice what's changed. Notice what hasn't changed yet. Got it? Now I want you to take the color and send it to the number that you assigned to your problem. If it was a 7, send the color to that 7. Just let it do what it does. There's no right or wrong here. And notice what's changed, what's changing. Notice what hasn't changed yet. Got it? Now we tap. So attention goes from the problem to the fingertips as you tap, and repeat after me. I release and let it go. It's safe to let it go. It's okay to let it go. Whatever it means, whatever it represents, I release and let it go. All the ways it's made me feel, all the beliefs I formed, I release and let it go. Grab the wrist, deep breath in, blow it all away. Peace. And back to the happy memory again. Step in again, see it, feel it, hear it, enjoy it. Now letting go of the wrist, right back to that problem memory and check it again. Actually send the color and the feeling from that happy memory, which is blended up together, the feeling and the color, send it to what's left of the problem. Notice how strong it is now. And I would love to check in with people and note and let me know number that you started with and what it is now. I think you can put that in the chat box. Oh my God, we've got a 6 to a 1. And you can just write the 2 numbers so that it's easy to get them in. Anybody else? Set 8 to 1, 8 to 6. Good. Okay. Anybody feeling resistance? Because for some people, resistance, it's nothing more than your mind wanting to keep you safe, and it's okay. It doesn't mean you're wrong, doesn't mean that you can't do it. It means that there's something there that you want to keep safe from. So just knowing that that is the case, let's tap some more. Okay? Notice what's left. Go back to the problem one more time. And notice what's left by noticing what you hear, what you see, or what you feel. And tap on that. Okay? Tap on it by saying, thank you, body, for letting me know what to let go of. It's coming up so I can let it go. The past is over. I choose to keep the wisdom. I'm here now. I'm worthy of being released from being stuck. Grab wrist. Peace. And I want you to put your hands into your armpits and flap your arms like a duck and give me a quack-a-doodle-doo. Quack-a-doodle-doo. And back to the problem. Check it again. What's there now? Notice, is it changing? The intensity of it. Show of hands, who's below a 5 now? 5? Below 5? Okay. And let's tap on that. Maybe I can let this amount that's left go too. Maybe I can feel more relaxed, more peaceful, more at ease. Maybe I am Zen. Maybe I am love and connection. Maybe I am peace and ease. Maybe, just maybe, and grab your wrist, peace. And back to the happy memory. And I want you to notice how much has changed in the time that we have been doing this, just like 15, 20 minutes that we've been doing it. And I want to, before we share experiences around this, I want everyone to close your eyes one more time and tune inward to notice what has changed here today. Notice how much better you're feeling. And if there is something left, that's okay. Just notice what has changed. Notice how much happier you're feeling, how much more peaceful, calm, zen, at ease, whatever it is that changed for you. And just imagine being in that situation from the memory now. Notice how much easier it is, how much it's changed. And then gently tap and say, I'm okay. It's okay. I made it through. Stronger for it. I'm peaceful. I'm safe. And squeeze your wrist. Go back to your color. And bring that color to the center of your chest, into your heart space. And with each deep breath in, allow that color to get bigger, stronger, filling you up. And as you exhale, allow your shoulders to relax. Allow that color to spread throughout your whole body. And now you're in your future, the future of your life. And notice how much better you feel as you've allowed yourself to feel better, happier, more successful, more at peace than you've ever been. And you may have noticed that your life, your family, your friends, in fact, your whole world just got better and better just because you made that decision to take charge, to take control, to forgive yourself, to make peace with you. And let all these changes occur even as you go on with the rest of your evening, even as you sleep. And when you've got it, when it feels good for you, squeeze your wrist, take a deep breath, and blow it out. And say peace. And open your eyes whenever you're ready. And we can share if we want around what the experience was like that you had.
I feel like I've gone on a vacation just in this last 10 minutes. I feel like I went on a vacation. I'm completely refreshed and energized. That's just amazing. I love that.
Great.
I'd love it if people are comfortable sharing, any part of your experience, either how you feel. I mean, I see some great numbers, 7-3, 7-1, 11-4. But I would love to hear from folks that if you're open to sharing. Liz.
It was visceral. It was physically visceral because when I thought of the problem at the beginning, I had this feeling like in the pit. And each time it rose, I could feel it in my chest. And then I could feel it in my throat. And it was a physical ache around my throat and my jaw. And then, I think the second to the last round, when you kind of said, relax your shoulders, it was like, oh, they're going down anyway. So it was a very physical sensation for me.
That's neat.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Leslie Martinez has a comment as well.
Yes, I was wondering, Jeanne, why the first round, I felt like I had overcome my feelings, but then when I went back into it a second or third time, I still was feeling something there, but it did improve as each round. But
Yeah.
The first time I thought, oh, well, the first one did it, but it didn't seem like it really had.
Right. Well, it's parts and pieces. It's like these memories have components to them. And so the reason that we do it in a very thorough way is because we want to clean it all up. We don't want any stragglers left. And it was your unconscious letting you know. It's like, oh, it's not all gone. There's this or there's this. It's a feeling or something you hear. And then you go, got it, that, tap on that. I let it go, let it go, let it go. So that's great that your unconscious gave you what the other parts and pieces were.
Thank you for explaining that.
I like what you've said a couple of times tonight too, which is that you can do this in very simple ways. You don't necessarily have to fill out your chart. And though that is probably one of the most meaningful things that, I have done with you too, is to actually list and come up with a bunch of different painful memories that I practice with. But, I think just this exercise has been great to just get this simple thing. So can you talk to us a little bit about, recommendations for what we should do as steps to actually apply this to things that aren't just my snafu with my website and perhaps memories of, childhood memories are probably pretty popular ones for people to want to try to
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah, yeah. And well, I would say about that, the way to work with it is that we're noticing how our mind works, and our experience in this moment is built from the past. And so when you go back and you can make a list, I call it my peace list of like things that bother me from the past that need to be cleaned up. Because when you go back and you resolve those experiences from your past, you're not dragging them with you into the present moment anymore. And you're more clear to move forward. So it's like you're no longer taking that trash can from your past and putting it into your future. And that's what we do. We take our past experiences, if it's something bad, and we assume that it is going to happen in the future. And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So when you change these things from your past that are bothersome, you don't have to change the good ones. You get to keep those. You're changing your beliefs. You're changing your perceptions. And that makes a difference in our life today. Big time.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, Jeannie, this has been amazing and such a really neat little experience with you. I'm amazed how it was able to work on Zoom as opposed to a one-on-one kind of thing. So thank you for your creativity to pull that off. Does anybody
and thank you to everybody. I want to thank everybody for playing along. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Any more questions or comments before we close for our evening? Yeah, a few people have sent me private texts, and I've seen here that people have classes and have had to drop off early. But so I want to honor your time in the several minutes we have left. I first of all, again, want to thank every single, not only speaker and storyteller, especially tonight's three amazing women, but also every single one of you for being here and for showing up night after night. I think one of the things, back to my little, stress out that I did in the exercise with Jeanne is that I do tend to try to fill my plate. And I think 3 nights in a row, just sort of hindsight is 2020 is probably a lot to ask people to attend. So for those of you that did it, man, thank you so much. Moving forward, I'll take smaller doses probably. I also just really want to thank the coaches that we met earlier, and someone that, and I don't know if she's prepared to show her face, but someone who you've heard the name Wendy throughout the last 3 nights. Wendy, can you say hello to us? This is Wendy. Oh my gosh, your son is there.
He's here. He's been here all 3 nights.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. I have to say something to share, if you don't mind. I don't want to embarrass you, but Wendy shared with me that her son came in the first night and was like, wow, this is interesting. When I think it was Susan and Claudia were telling their story of selling everything and traveling all over the world. And then last night, you came in and said, hey, has it started yet? And you're here again tonight. Yep. That to me, you cannot know how important that is to us, that you care about learning how wonderful getting older can be. It's not to be scared, not to be afraid of. So thank you.
Well, and I just think it's a testament to Diana, to the speakers and the speaker coaches. One, that you all were able to tell stories that captivated a 10-year-old. And I think it's important for you to know that he does not take an interest in the events that I run. This is the first time that he has ever walked in the office, seen a virtual event going, and been like, can I stay in and listen? And then come back night after night. So
Oh my
You know,
goodness.
this isn't just his character. Like, this is out of character for him. So this is a big, you know, a big win for me, but also for all of you. It just, it warms my heart.
Well, part of the theme of the last 3 nights, and this is borne out in reality here, is that we have a lot to learn from each other. And just as you might be intrigued by what we have to say, I look forward to events where people of your age, in any age, can be on these and share, because we have a lot to learn from you. Even though you're younger than us, I'm sure there's a lot that you could teach us too. So thanks for being here. And thank you, Wendy, for making these evenings run so beautifully. I'm going to just say a few words before I say goodnight, and we all say goodnight to each other. And they are that, you know, this is your time. Each of our speakers has said it in a different way, but this is a turning point in our lives, not only as we come out of the pandemic eventually, and we've embraced the shifts of perception or perspective that we have on our own lives and recentered to what we really want. It's our time. You know, the horizon of our lives is always undetermined, but most certainly as we pass 50 and beyond, the end zone is in view. So now is your time to just completely dig in, find and discover or rediscover who you are, what you want, and what you can dream of, you need to act on. It's our time to rewrite our life's story in any way we decide. We can tap it in, we can dream it in, whatever we do. I just hope that you all embrace this opportunity, and just go for it. I'm going to end with a quote. It's one of the most powerful quotes that I discovered a number of years ago by the poet Mary Oliver. The end of the poem, A Summer's Day, she asks the question, and I'll ask you, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Thank you again. Please unmute yourselves. I love to hear everyone saying goodbye, and thank you very much for being here.
Good night, Diana. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Bye.
Mwah. So much fun. Thank you.
Diana, are you still here?
I am.
This is Kim.